Well, what we're getting is very linear. It's a motion. A linear motion is unnatural motion, and that's what's happening with this ball. It doesn't look like it's falling at an increasing rate of speed as we would expect a ball to do, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down as it reaches its apex on the bounce back. These are things that we would expect to see in a moving ball. So let's make some changes to this. First of all, I'm just going to click to stop the playback. I'm going to scrub my current time indicator to the beginning of my timeline again. I'm going to select this keyframe for the position property at the beginning of my timeline, and I'm going to make a change to this. I'm going to hit the control or hold down the control button while I click on that keyframe. And you can see we get this contextual message window. And there's a number of things that we can change here, but the one I want to change is this down here, the Keyframe Assistant. And I would like to make this an easy ease out. What is that, easy ease? Well, easing is a property in animation that slows down a movement as it begins its motion and then increases that motion over time. And the last thing we want to do is we want to scrub our current time indicator to the last keyframe along our position property, and make sure that you are in fact right over top of that keyframe. If you're a little bit off, we can end up creating another keyframe where we don't want it. If you're at all unsure about whether or not you are over top of that keyframe, you can do a couple different things. You can see over here we have our Keyframe Assistant, and I can hit this arrow on the right here, and that'll bring me to the next keyframe, and there we go. Now you can see that's automatically positioned over top of my keyframe. And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to hold down my control button again and click on that keyframe. Again, I'm going to come down to Keyframe Assistant, and now I'm going to go Easy Ease In. All right, let's play this back and let's see what this looks like. And I'm going to come up to the preview window again, and rather than hit the play button, I'm actually going to hit this RAM preview. What this will do, this will give us a real-time playback. The play button will give us an approximation of the playback, whereas the RAM preview will give us the real thing. Okay, well, you can see there's been a slight improvement in the way this ball is moving. It comes up to the apex and it slows just a little bit, and then it slowly falls back and picks up speed as it gets to the ground. And that looks much more realistic. But we could do even better. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to click again to pause that playback. I'm going to actually open up something here called the graph editor. You can see it looks like a little waveform along a graph. If I just click that, though, you can see that this gives us a graphical representation of this ball falling in space. And you can see what's happening here. Let's see if we can follow this. This ball is, or the ball is falling along this green path. This is telling us that it's starting off slowly, and then as it increases in this graph, that's showing us that it's picking up speed, and then it actually maintains that position across the top here, and then bounces back, and it starts off fairly quickly and then slows as it gets into this final position. That is what this green line is showing us. Now, if I want to increase the amount of time that the ball spends up at the top of the air and then have it fall a little bit more quickly. And you'll see what I mean in just a second. The thing I need to do is I need to come over here, and you can see that there's a little button here that says Separate Dimensions. I'm just going to click that. And now we have, you can see that we have X and Y positions as separate values. And that's what we want to do. And what we want to do is we want to edit this Y value. And how we do that is I'm just going to come over here and click on this first keyframe, and that's basically telling us where that ball was at the top of its cycle. And I'm going to hold down the Option button, and I'm going to drag out. It almost looks like a Bezier curve in Illustrator, and look how that is changing the arc of that green path. And I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. I'm just going to click on this keyframe. This is the last of our position keyframes. And I'm going to, again, hold down the Option button. And you can see it gives me that transform tool. And again, I'm just going to drag out a Bezier curve that gives us a much more pronounced curve. And watch what happens when I hit the playback button. Now you can see how that's really changed the way this ball is bouncing. It's actually got much more personality at this point. It's really taking its time as it gets to the top of its arc and then falling and then much more quickly falling to the ground. And that is the benefits of working with these ease properties. At this point, what I'd like to do is copy our keyframes and then paste them along our timeline so that we can create a looping animation. Currently, we're only working within this 2 seconds worth of work area along our timeline, but I'd like to actually have this bounce along the entire 10-second length of our time frame, of our timeline. So how do we do that? Well, actually, the first thing I'd like to do is I'm going to take my selection tool and I'm just going to drag around those two keyframes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition them. Currently they're at the 2-second mark, but I would like to reposition them so that they're at the 1 second 29 frame mark. So I'm just going to drag them 1 frame back along my timeline. There we go. Now we're at the 1 second 29 frame mark. That's exactly what I want. Now I'd like to be able to see my entire timeline. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this zoom slider back all the way to the left so that I can see all 10 seconds of my timeline. I'm going to reposition my work area so that I can work within the entire 10 seconds of my timeline. Just going to drag that all the way to the end. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to again use my selection tool and I'm going to draw a marquee or a selection around all of those keyframes. All right. And now I'm going to copy them. I'm just going to go Command C. And now what I want to do is I want to reposition my current time indicator so it is exactly at the 2-second mark. There we go. 2 seconds, 0 frames. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste what I've just copied. All those keyframes, I'm going to paste them again. And paste. There we go. And now I'm going to reposition my keyframe, or my current time indicator, at the 4-second mark. So there you go. Make sure it's right at 4, not 329, but 4. And I'm going to paste again. And I'm going to paste this again at the 6-second mark. Make sure I'm right on there, 6, and I'm going to paste again. And finally, I'm going to reposition my current time indicator at the 8-second mark and make sure that it's right over top at 8 seconds. And finally, paste again. There we go. We now have this ball and its looping cycle pasted and looping over our 10 seconds of timeline. Let's see how this is working. I'm going to come back over here to the preview panel and I'm going to hit Ran Preview and I'm going to let this ball bounce. There we go. And you can see how our red timeline is going along our timeline here and it's telling us exactly when it gets to 10 and then it's just going back to the beginning and looping again. And there we go. We have a realistically bouncing ball. In our next video, we're going to actually talk about how we can take this animation and what's called nest it within another animation in order to get this ball bouncing across our screen rather than just bouncing in place.